Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. Danan Hughes likes to be a man in motion, and if you didn't know it or didn't hear him say it, then all you have to do is look at what he's done to know that that is the case. He was a two-sport scholarship athlete at the University of Iowa. He played all sports as a youth growing up, was good enough to be drafted in both the National Football League and Major League Baseball. He loved baseball the best for a long time before his affections switched, and he ended up becoming a 6-year member of the Kansas City Chiefs, a standout on special teams, and a wide receiver on some of the great Marty Schottenheimer teams of the 1990s. After 6 years in the National Football League, he decided to hang it up. That's an interesting story over a 72-hour span. And then he entered the world of business, and of course, he was a success there. And then he entered the world of broadcasting. And of course, he's been a success there and now is on the Kansas City Chiefs broadcast team. And all along the way as well, he has carved out an outstanding career in banking. And all the while, he is a man of deep faith as well and has incorporated that as a very important part of his super busy, super productive life, which continues to roll on. Youthful at 50 years of age with plenty still to do. He is full of life and full of conversation and full of fun. And that conversation comes your way next on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing here. Well, it stormed. The last thing you want to mess with is dealing with it, but now you're stuck with dozens of people knocking on your door telling you everything they think you want to hear. Do not trust your biggest asset to a company that lies dormant until it storms, only to change their name and wither away after their substandard work is complete. Call Easton Roofing for a free roof evaluation. 913-257-5426. 913-257-5426. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. Let's have a brief conversation with David Schmidt from Pro Millennial. David, what differentiates you from other financial organizations?
I would say the passion we have for seeing our clients succeed is probably paramount to what we do here. There's no joy greater than watching a client accumulate wealth. I had a client that I've had for many years was able to buy his dream warehouse. Nothing too extravagant, but we had a savings plan in place and was able to see him fulfill his dreams.
And what else motivates you in this industry?
Well, lately it's been finding out inconsistencies in the marketplace, ferreting out some more than questionable ideas out there that what we're seeing with Bitcoin and a few of these other cryptocurrencies right now. I'm in the opinion where if it's untraceable, it really needs to be regulated in a big way right now.
To get more information and advice from David, visit promillennial.com or call 816-221-7775. That's 816-221-7775. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Danan, you were born and raised in Bayonne, New Jersey, and that certainly is a medium-sized town in New Jersey that probably a lot of people listening right now don't know a heck of a lot about. I've certainly heard of it, but isn't that where the boxer, the Bayonne Bleeder, is from? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's sports claim to fame is Chuck Wepner is from Bayonne, is the Bayonne Bleeder, the one the Rocky movies were supposed to be modeled after. And yeah, so Bayonne, New Jersey is about 5 minutes from New York City, up in North Jersey, and I was born and raised there. My parents were born and raised there, my grandparents. spent most of their life there as well. So we were pretty fully ingrained into that town as a family.
What was it like as a place to grow up?
I thought it was great. I loved it. You walked everywhere. You really didn't need a car. A lot of people on the East Coast, especially the closer you get to New York City, don't really have cars. And my family, I had a lot of extended family members that were in that town. It was sports oriented. My family is sports oriented. My father played softball, fast pitch softball, competitive, and my mother bowled, and my sister played basketball and softball. And then it was me that played baseball, basketball, and football. And, it's kind of the old school neighborhood. You walked around. You didn't stay in the house. My parents, the old mantra in my house was, you don't got somewhere to go or something to do? You want me to give you something to do? So it was like, okay, well, I'm going to be out. And then when the street lights came on, you came home. And we played basketball, street football, stickball in the streets, and kind of like an old school movie, inner city life. I loved it. I mean, I was raised by my community. Couldn't get in trouble anywhere. I lived on 19th Street. If something happened on 31st Street, by the time I got home, everybody knew about it on 19th Street. So my community raised me, kept me out of trouble, and helped me get to where I got to.
What'd your mom and dad do?
Both of my parents worked in New York City. My mother was a legal secretary. My father worked in the bond market, so he worked in the World Trade Center for many years, and then in and out, whether it's Midtown or down in the Trade Center. My mother also worked over in New York City. I remember, obviously, 9/11 was obviously an insane day because both my parents were working over there near. At that point, they had not worked in the Trade Center. They were working near it. So they had to walk across the George Washington Bridge and get back home to Bayonne. But yeah, they both worked over in New York City, and my parents used to take me over there all the time.
Tell me about your siblings.
I have one sister. She's 3 years older than me. One great current note is that she just went back to college to finish school. Wow. And got her degree just about a few months ago. So very, very proud of her. She's been working as a social worker in the social work system, for about 30 years now, pretty much since she got out of high school. And she works in the Bayonne, Jersey City area as well. And that's my only sibling. And then we have, like I said, a whole bunch of cousins and and everybody else around. My parents. My mother only has one sibling. My father has 7. So a lot of extended family members that were in that town.
What was it like to discover sports there? You mentioned you came up in a sports-oriented family. How did you take to it? Was it just sort of the natural course of things?
Yeah, it was pretty natural. A lot of things revolved around sports. I mean, if you're outside of the house, you're doing something, and if you're with a bunch of kids your age, I was always the younger of the group around me. One, in part because my sister was 3 years older, so the friends she was around were older, and then I was younger for my age. In Jersey, you can start kindergarten at 5 years old, but it's based on your birth date by the end of the calendar year, while opposed to a lot of places where it's your birth date as of the start of the school year. So I'm a December baby, so I was a 17-year-old high school graduate. So I was pretty darn young, 13-year-old freshman in high school. And so I played around a lot of older cousins and friends around the neighborhood, and that's kind of how I had to keep up. I had to figure out how to be able to stay on the court when it was time to play basketball, be able to pitch, and when we were playing stickball or strike box, and then Little League and all of those, all those sports. And football was the last sport I played. Baseball is my first love. It was the first sport I played. Still is my first love. And but yeah, I played with older kids, so it kind of helped me be a little bit more competitive and probably be a little bit better.
When did you realize that maybe you had some aptitude in these sports? And of course, you would go on to play two of them in college. When did you sort of look around or realize you were keeping up with those older guys and realize that you had something?
It was, you know what? It was weird because I probably couldn't pinpoint like when the light truly came on until maybe my junior year of high school. Like, because you're playing with the same group of people all the time, you're usually just as good or close to, a little bit better than them, but you never really get how you measure up against other people around the state.
Right.
We didn't travel around. We didn't have AAU. We didn't have any of that. So it was just like you're playing in the neighborhood. The big thing was getting picked first. Whoever had to pick teams, if you got moving up, and when I was younger, if I was picked third or fourth, and then when I got older, I started getting picked first, or I was starting as the captain, then you kind of realize, okay, well, yeah, I'm better. I'm just as good or better than everybody around here. And I was a really good athlete. When I look back now from that lens, I don't consider myself that I was a really good football player or a really good baseball player or a really good basketball player. I consider myself that I was a really good athlete who happened to play baseball, basketball, and football. And then when I got to college, that's when I started to realize, okay, I'm a pretty darn good football player. I'm measuring up against all these players all around the country, and these top-ranked teams were playing on national TV and so on. But in high school, it was like, I'm getting picked first, and my name's in the paper, and we're winning championships and so on in high school, so I guess we're pretty good.
You mentioned, and it's often noted in some of the research I did, that baseball is your first love. What made it your first love?
My father played softball, so when I was too small to play or not yet old enough to play, I would go and watch him play competitive softball every weekend. He was a pitcher, so catching for him, when I got old enough to be able to catch fast pitch softball from him, and then playing with his teammates in the outfield and chasing the ball, it was just one of those. It was the first sport that I really latched on to. Football, I really played just because there was no fall baseball. I didn't have anything to do in the fall, and I couldn't sit in the house, so some other friends were playing football. So I was like, okay, I'll go try this football thing. And that was probably like when I was 11 or 12 years old, so it was pretty late. And but baseball was it. And I played Little League as early as possible, and Pony League we had there, and then high school, and summer baseball. Like, it was it. I was a pitcher and a shortstop early, and I played outfield and pitcher. One of the great moments of my high school pitching is that the national champions were from our conference, and they were 28-1. They won the national title, and I beat them the one game. I pitched against them, and we beat them 7-1. So I still give those guys a little crap. I'm still messing with them a little bit because I know some of them from social media, and they followed my career and so on. So at least I got an upper hand on that. But yeah, baseball was it. I just always felt like, and I still feel like, you grab the ball on the mound, it's you versus the batter, and when you're in the batter's box, it's you versus that pitcher, and it's you versus that ball. And there was just something about when the ball leaves the pitcher's hands, now as a batter, it's you versus that ball. And there was just something about that dynamic that always just really triggered me. Like, I get excited just thinking about the fact of being in a batter's box, and somebody's trying to beat you with a baseball. Somebody's trying to blow a baseball past you, and you have something to say about it. In football, there's got to be a few other parts that are working in order for you to get the ball as a receiver, or if you're a defensive back, in order for you to get an interception like I was. But for baseball, it was like that ball's going to come across this plate, and I can do something about it. And that just always was something that just was a dynamic that really kind of energized me.
Well, obviously you would go to the University of Iowa, so you were being recruited at a high level from far away. And tell me a little bit about the recruiting process and how important baseball was in that aspect, too.
Well, baseball was a huge priority. I always tell people I don't know if I had a lot of common sense, but I had a little bit, and I had enough to know that staying near New Jersey was not necessarily going to be something that would create success for me. It wasn't that New Jersey was a bad place. It was just that I had a lot of friends. I hung out in New York City a lot. This is just during my high school years. So I just felt like I would be distracted and I would be home more than I should. So getting away was optimum, and then playing baseball was a priority. And every coach that I met with, whether it was Joe Paterno or Tom Osborne, Hayden Fry, obviously, and the list goes on the schools throughout the East Coast that recruited me. Like, you recruit me for football, but you got to be able to agree that I'm going to be able to play baseball and commit to me that I can play baseball. And all of the coaches said the right things, but the one that I really felt was telling me the truth was Hayden Fry. And he came into my living room with his cowboy boots on. I never saw cowboy boots in person in my life. I never met anybody from the state of Texas in my life. And he came in there and he just wowed us. He was a great person. He was a great salesman. He knew about the program, and he sold me on that. As long as my grades were up to par and I wasn't sitting the bench in baseball, that I can play baseball. And one of the great compliments I have for him in a time where college sports is more about salesmanship, and you hear about stories of coaches saying anything to get a recruit and not necessarily being forthcoming or truthful. Coach Fry had the integrity. He stand up and had integrity that what he said in my face and in my parents' face, he allowed to be true. And so I always cherish that moment and cherish that relationship because of that. And when it was time to go to Iowa, that was a tough time because I was leaving New Jersey. I was leaving home. That was probably maybe the first or second time I had ever been out of the state of Jersey. And but it was one of the great decisions that I ever made in my life. And I think a lot of people back home questioned it, but they realize now that it was the greatest time and the greatest place to be for me.
You redshirted that first year in both sports, but played spring football or participated in spring football. That was fairly commonplace then, but what was it like to not be on the playing field for a year?
Well, I was a quarterback and a safety in high school, and so when I got recruited, all the schools that recruited me gave me the choice of playing quarterback, receiver, or defensive back. And I just felt like back then, especially with the passing offenses that were prolific around college football, I felt I could throw the ball and I could be a quarterback, but I'm only 6'2", and that was when you had the bigger quarterbacks. And I said, I don't want to play defensive back. I'll try this wide receiver thing. I think I can catch a ball and I can run a little bit. So the redshirt year, my coach, which not many people realize, maybe because they don't realize how old I am, but my coach at Iowa for my redshirt freshman year was Bill Snyder. Mm-hmm. And I learned more from Bill Snyder in 1 year than, especially with it being a new position and the attention to detail. It was necessary. So to answer your question, it was very necessary for me to redshirt, coming from kind of an inner city league, just to nail down the terminologies, the intricate offenses, how to play college baseball as opposed to just playing baseball. And so with Dwayne Banks as the head coach on the baseball program and Hayden Fry on the football side and Bill Snyder and those coaches like that first year was like, it wasn't frustrating for me as we hear from kids nowadays who transfer so quickly because they're not getting playing time as soon as they get on campus. Like, it was pretty normal, and it was very necessary for me to kind of get ingrained into being away from home, the college, the academic side, as well as learning a new position and a new offense.
Did you immediately take to the baseball aspect of it? And what is it like playing Big Ten baseball? I mean, it's cold a lot.
Yes. Yeah, there weren't very many short sleeve days that we were able to be out on the baseball diamond. We didn't go outside. We practiced in the indoor facility pretty much for most of the early part of the season, from January And there were times where we didn't even get outside to play on the diamond until after we played a couple of games, when we would go down south, down to Florida, and play during spring break and et cetera. There were times where we may have practiced once or twice outside before even going on those trips. But the great thing about the state of Iowa, there's no pro sports, so everything that's a Hawkeye, everybody loves. And once I had success, because I redshirted in both sports as a freshman, I was able to have success as a redshirt freshman at wide receiver. And even though our team wasn't very good, I believe we were 5-6 that year, I had some success. I'd set some records as a freshman in receiving and touchdowns and so on. So then when the word got out that I would be starting to play baseball, there was a lot more buzz, and we had a really good baseball team. Cal Eldred was, a first-round pick. We had some really good baseball teams during those years. So it was fun to get on that team and not be dependent on. I was just like a reserve. I was like the fourth outfielder and pinch ran and pinch hit late in games that freshman year, but it was a great experience.
Well, and eventually the football program would have some great experiences too. You played in bowl games, you did things like that. So it sounds like it was a real winning atmosphere all around there.
Absolutely. It was a great window of time to be a Hawkeye. We always were dominant in wrestling. One of the funnier moments is when I was being recruited and I went on my recruiting trip to Iowa. The first place they took me from Cedar Rapids Airport was to a wrestling match. And, I grew up in Jersey. We didn't have wrestling. So I was like, what are we going to, WWF or something? Is this? And they're like, no, we're going to a college wrestling match. I was like, what kind of mess is this? So we got down. It was standing room only, 17,000 fans. And Iowa had to pin the opponent in the heavyweight division to win the match. And lo and behold, it was number 1 Iowa versus number 2 Iowa State. And I remember when we got the pin and we got the win and everybody erupted and Carver Hawkeye Arena, when it was crazy, I remember leaning over to another recruit and I said, if they go crazy like this for wrestling, I can't imagine what they do for football. And I was sold. I hadn't even seen Coach Fry yet. It was like I was ready to go back home and sign on the dotted line to be a Hawkeye. So it was just a great window of time. We won the Big Ten in baseball. We went to college regionals postseason. We won the Big Ten in football my sophomore year. We went to the Rose Bowl. We still have the highest win percentage in Iowa history my junior year when we were 10-1-1. We tied Detmer in the Holiday Bowl when I was a junior. And that's a trivia question. That's the last bowl game that ended in a tie in college football history was our game. So there you go. It was just a great window of time to be a Hawkeye, and we had a lot of success.
Well, I know you never get to talk about your college football career without talking about Snow Angels. So, and also, I mean, it was such a cool thing. You win the game. It's Hayden Fry's 100th win, and it's snowing out. Tell that story for everyone.
So the game was about to be snowed out. We were staying in Cedar Rapids in a hotel, and we could barely get to the stadium that morning. They thought about canceling the game, and I'm a little bit of a character, and I had did some touchdown dances back then when they were legal in college football, and I told my teammates I was going to do a snow angel if I scored. And I told my baseball teammates as well that I was going to do it, and a lot of my baseball teammates were there in the end zone throwing snowballs at the Minnesota Golden Gophers, which was pretty funny. And I caught the touchdown and did a snow angel, and I just thought, I did a lot of touchdown dances. I had a lot of antics after catches. And, to this day, there's not a time that I can go into the state of Iowa. Not to Iowa, not to the university, just in the state. Anywhere in the state of Iowa, and somebody recognize my name and say, I remember you did the snow angel. So it's just hilarious that that's something that stands out. A lot of people had fun with it, and obviously it was great that we were able to win that ball game. But, that's how it all originated, and now that's what I'm known for. It's pretty cool.
After that sports year, and as you said, there was success on the baseball field too. You got drafted and drafted pretty high too, and went off to play minor league baseball. At that point, at that very point in time, after you're drafted in the third round, I believe, what was your mindset at that point in time as far as what your future in sports might be?
So it's interesting because that's when the strange kind of twist started to form in my mind. I loved football, I loved baseball, but I always felt like I was a baseball player playing football. And then once I got a dose of that, the aura of Kinnick Stadium and the success we had in football, things started to sway a little bit around my sophomore year in college, where I was like, I'm a football player who happens to play baseball. And but I had success on the baseball diamond, and I was drafted the same draft as Derek Jeter and Jason Giambi, and those guys were first-round picks. I was a third-round pick, and was fortunate enough. And in my negotiations with the Brewers, I said, I'll only sign if you allow me to go back and play my senior year of football. And it was just really, really important for me to finish what I started, to finish on a high note. Coach Fry had scheduled us to play in the Kickoff Classic, which was back at Giant Stadium. So my family really never got a chance to come see me play in person in Iowa. So that was going to be an opportunity for me to play in front of my family members, in front of all the friends and supporters from Bayonne that helped me get to that point. So that was really important for me to go back and play. And but I kind of felt at the time that I was a football player playing baseball. And but they gave me money. They gave me a six-figure signing bonus. I was able to buy my first car as a junior in college. That was the first car I ever had in my life. And I lived pretty well as an athlete on the campus of the University of Iowa with actually some money in my pocket. So, that's kind of how it all shook up, and it was just a great experience to be able to go and play minor league baseball in Helena, Montana, and playing that. I believe it was the Pioneer League or Northwoods League or so.
Pioneer, I think. Yeah.
Pioneer, and play some great quality baseball in the minor league system, wood bat, and have that experience, and then go back to Iowa and finish my senior year and play football. And then from there, that's where the real decision had to come, was when the Chiefs were ready to draft me.
You got hurt towards the end of your senior year, and that combined with the fact that you were playing professional baseball, that hurt your draft status, didn't it?
Yeah, I broke my foot. So I went through the season. I had an ankle injury that kind of hampered me for probably the last 5 or 6 games of the season. And then right after that, I got invited to the Hula Bowl and the East-West Shrine game. And right before the Hula Bowl, I broke my foot. And I still played in the Hula Bowl. I still played in the East-West Shrine game, but my foot was broken. And then right after that Shrine game, I went and flew back to Chandler, Arizona to start spring training. And I was rehabbing for the Brewers at spring training, and then flying out at times to go to the combine and to visit with teams, and then coming back to Arizona to play baseball, and doing that back and forth, even though my foot was not fully healed. The Chiefs drafted me. Some say I was supposed to be projected as a second-round pick, third round at the latest, and I wind up dropping to the 7th round because of baseball and because of the broken foot. So that's when kind of things got real, where I was in a mindset of proving teams wrong, proving that I can play NFL football, and I had to make the decision to give up baseball and go to football. And people always ask me that question, what went into that decision? And really, I felt like if I don't go to football now, I'll never have an opportunity to do so. But if I go to football and for whatever reason I fail, I can always go back to baseball. And that was really what went into my thought process in giving up baseball, walking away from baseball. And I felt like if something happens in training camp, I was still on crutches, or I didn't make the team, then I would just go right back to baseball and resume my career. 6 years later, married with 4 kids, I was not going back to minor league baseball. So
that sounds like a plan indeed. So you faced a challenge. Obviously, you're coming off an injury. You're a 7th-round draft choice. You're joining a team that is just chock full of big names, and Joe Montana has come to town. That must have been a pretty overwhelming time.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty wild. This is part of my being naive. One aspect that I really believed helped me relax and play and make the team, even though I was on practice squad for part of my rookie year, is that I really thought that if you drafted a player, that player made the team. I tell people that, and they're like, no, that's not true. I'm like, 100% true. I was relaxed. I took my rehab. I took my rehab seriously, but I didn't feel pressured to jump on the field real quick. I was able to absorb the playbook. I was able to go through camp and just be a player, not be like biting my nails and worry about what reps were coming to me and who looking at the depth chart, because I really believed that draft picks made the team already. And then lo and behold, after that, I realized, whoa, there were some draft picks that got cut. I said, well, thank goodness I wasn't one of them. And so that kind of allowed me to kind of ease into being an NFL player without feeling the pressures like a lot of other players do.
At this point in time, you mentioned you would eventually have 5 children, and you had 4 fairly quickly. How did you meet your wife?
So actually my senior year at Iowa, we had gone to bowl games in other years, and we wound up losing to Minnesota my senior year, the last game of the year. So that was going to be the first year I was going home for Christmas, because prior years we either went to bowl games or I went and we started playing baseball. So I didn't really go home for the winter break. So that winter break, 1992, was the first year I went home for Christmas, and that's when I met my wife, who's also from New Jersey. So I met her, we started dating, and because I had baseball money in my pocket, she was able to travel with me a little bit, and while we were getting to know each other, and I wound up asking her to marry me right before, it was like 2 days before the AFC Championship in my rookie year when we were going to Buffalo. We had a 2-day break, and I flew home and to Jersey, and I asked her to marry me, and then I almost had a problem getting back on the plane because there was a snowstorm. But fortunately, I was able to get back, and we've been together and married 26 years. We have 5 kids, 3 grandkids, and that's when I met her. So anytime I get on her nerves, she probably wishes that we would have went to a bowl game my senior year. I don't know.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Hey everybody, Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing here. For almost 10 years, we've been a locally owned and operated family business. At Easton, we work on every job with one thing in mind: integrity matters. I grew up in central Kansas, was raised on the values of respecting hard work. We run our company every day on that value set. At Easton, we always make decisions based on the ethical, right thing for the customer. That's what integrity means to us. So if you have any questions about your roof, give me and my team a call, 913-257-5426, Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
We're here once again with Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Springtime, good weather's finally here. People want to stay active, and it's your job to make sure that they can stay active, and be healthy.
Danny, we see a lot of not just weekend warriors, but people that every day are having that want to get back to activity. Whether you're starting with walking, jogging, or maybe that first 5K of the year, we want to help you out. We specialize in taking care of all ages, from kids all the way to grandmas and grandpas, but absolutely specialize in getting you back to full function and keeping you in great shape.
So in short, how do we go about doing that?
The first thing is to schedule a consultation with one of our doctors and therapists so we can see how you move and how you're supposed to move. Based on our assessment, we can put together a short treatment plan and a set of goals to help you both feel better, function better, and most importantly, stay better for this year and many years to come.
Learn more at asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Llewellyn for the 23rd Street Brewery. Thank you so much for supporting local restaurants, especially through this pandemic. And you know what? We're almost through it. At the 23rd Street Brewery, we have brought in a few more tables. You can wear a mask if you want or not. It's your choice. Other than that, we're open 11:30 every single day. So come see us at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence.
We're here with Michael Barber, the CEO and founder of Microlight Corporation of America, the world leaders in laser therapy. And Michael, tell us a little bit about your product.
Our device is using a particular wavelength and power to reduce pain and swelling. My background is surgical lasers, but I've been involved with this particular device now for about the last 20 years, actually.
And I know that it works because I've had it used on me as well. And tell us about the relationship you have with your company and Canaway.
It's what I call a strategic business relationship in that Canaway, the leader in the field of the cannabinoid systems and CBD oil, but our device used in conjunction with Canaway CBD oil gives a better pain relief outcome for the patient.
And if you want to get that pain relief outcome like I did, you can reach their local representative, Sherry McCants, at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Danan Hughes is our guest, a longtime NFL player, and now, of course, with the Chiefs broadcasting team, and does a lot of college sports as well, and an iconic figure in the Iowa sports lexicon, to say the least. And so you come to the Chiefs, and this was a successful team. This is Marty Schottenheimer. This is big-name players. Go to the AFC Championship game your first year. After that, there would be some playoff disappointments. But what was it like carving out a career for yourself as a special teamer significantly, and sometimes as a wide receiver in this particular environment for Marty Schottenheimer?
Yeah, it was very unique. As you mentioned earlier, coming in with Joe Montana and Marcus Allen, I was drafted with Will Shields. Derek Thomas was already on the team. There was a slew of different guys who wind up going into the Hall of Fame who were here, and definitely guys that are in the Ring of Honor at Arrowhead Stadium that I played with. A lot of star power and a lot of great players. And just like anything, whether it's a company or being on a football team, you got to figure out your niche, figure out your lane. And for me, I was a bigger physical receiver, and I didn't mind contact. I actually liked it, which is different than a lot of receivers. So I naturally gravitated towards special teams. And I had never played special teams in my life. Outside of kickoff return, which I did at Iowa, I never returned a punt in my life. But when Marty came, I remember it was mid-season of my rookie year. I was on practice squad doing all the dirty and grind work as a practice squad receiver. And he came to me. We had a couple of injuries, and he's like, "Hey, Danan, can you punt return?" Now, I say I had a lot of common sense. This was one time where I actually showed it, where you don't ever tell a coach you can't do something. So I was like, "Yeah, I can punt return," and so he activated me, and my first opportunity to punt return ever in life was Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills at Arrowhead Stadium. I had never done it before, but I figured I can figure it out. And I always tell the story to a lot of kids that I've coached and mentored, that's part of the reason why I am such a strong advocate for multi-sport athletes, because one of the main reasons I was able to catch punts and be confident in catching punts is because I knew how to catch fly balls in baseball. I knew how to go back and track balls. I knew how to judge how the ball was hit and whether I needed to come in or go back or go to my right or left. And that really, really helped me with judging punts. And so I became one of the punt returner activated during that AFC Championship year. I had never covered a punt or covered a kickoff in my life. But, again, you're trying to find a lane and make a niche for yourself. And I became one of those knucklehead kamikaze special teams guys, and that was obviously a huge factor and important factor for Marty Schottenheimer teams back in those 90s is that we were tough on special teams. And fortunately, I was a captain of the special teams for 4 of my 6 years playing with the Chiefs, and I took it really, really personal, probably even more so than playing wide receiver. It was really, really important to me to be a leader in that group.
The team won games significantly during that stretch of time, but besides the run in your freshman year, there were quite a few disappointments as far as the postseason was concerned. How disappointing was that with such a talented team and the incredibly rabid fans that, Chiefs fans have always been rabid, but this was the era when it began, and there'll never be anything like it, the way the Chiefs were treated and loved by their fans.
Yeah, it was extremely disappointing, and you mentioned it. It was for the fans. Like, I felt bad for us as players, but I felt bad for the fans. And even when I started getting away from the game, retired, doing broadcasting, etc., I always felt like we dropped the ball for the fans. We shortchanged the fans. They were so deserving of some success during those runs to be able to experience us capping off a season in the right way with how they supported us on and off the field, and how they continued to do so even after my career was over. I just always felt like we shortchanged the fans. And one of the really gratifying aspects of the Super Bowl run for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes just a couple of seasons ago was like it was a very emotional run for me. Even in the games during the playoffs, I'd have to stand by myself. My family and my kids, they'd be in seats, and I'd be standing in the walkway because, I was kind of shook up. And then as we kept winning, and then at the Super Bowl, it was like, tears of joy, tears of, just feeling like, wow, we finally gave it to the fans. Like, I wasn't part of it. Like, I didn't run down on any kickoffs. I didn't catch any passes. But I just felt like, man, the best fans in the world are now finally getting their flowers. They're finally getting what they've deserved for more than 20, 30, 40 years. And we couldn't do it for them, but now they have that experience. So that was one of the aspects of the Super Bowl runs that we've had that really, really kind of resonated with me, is that we were able to give the fans something finally that, unfortunately, even with the great players that we had back in the 90s, we couldn't do for them.
Before I ask you about walking away from the game, most people probably don't know that you towed around a passer rating of 118.7 in 2 different seasons. You completed some kind of trick play because you were 1 for 1 both times, 1996 and 1998, and they were for significant chunks of yardage. Tell us about those plays.
Yeah, so I should have been 3 for 3 total in my career. We had one in 95 where I threw a touchdown pass to Lake Dawson in San Diego, and they deemed the pass from Steve Bono to me not a lateral, which it clearly was a lateral on film, but they said it wasn't a lateral, and they brought back that touchdown. So I should have been 3 for 3, but like I said, I played high school quarterback, played baseball. I had a good arm, still have a decent arm, and so Marty and Paul Hackett and Jimmy Ray used to enlist me for the reverse passes and the double passes and the trick plays to go on the field. So I threw one to Andre Rison. I threw one to Lake Dawson. I can't remember who else was a recipient of one of the other ones, but yeah, those were good times. I like those different aspects of the game where I could show the other aspects of my athleticism by throwing the football. I used to be able to throw it pretty well.
When your retirement story or decision to retire, and it's only a brief comment on it and the things I read, sounds pretty interesting and a little bit strange, I guess. The story goes that you were asked by somebody on the sideline at training camp how long you wanted to play, and you'd played 6 years, and you said that you wanted to play 4 more years and maybe play a total of 10. And then 72 hours later, you had changed your mind and decided you wanted to retire. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. I left the Chiefs, although I love the Chiefs and Chiefs organization. When Gunther Cunningham took over, that was the end of my tenure as a Chief. I was fortunate to be able to get signed. Billy Joe Tolliver was a backup quarterback with the Chiefs with Rich Gannon for a couple of seasons, and he was down in New Orleans. And when I became a free agent, he went to the New Orleans, Mike Ditka and those guys, and kind of coaxed them into bringing me in as a receiver. He talked well about my work ethic and special teams and all that stuff that they can see on film. So I went and signed with the Saints. They made me the special teams captain. This is kind of how dysfunctional that organization was. This was the year when Mike Ditka traded the entire draft for Ricky Williams.
Right.
That was 99. And he made me a captain. And then 72 hours later, the last cut of training camp, he called me in the office and said I was released. And you're right. Right before that, I was talking to one of the rookie receivers. I was like, I think I can play double-digit seasons. I kind of found my lane, my niche. I was going to be a number 3 receiver, maybe number 4 receiver, and I was going to be a special teams guy. That's what I was. And lo and behold, Mike Ditka had different plans, and I got released, and I did not. At that time, we had 4 kids, and I just did not want to bounce around. I didn't feel like I wanted to be one of those guys that spent my money trying to get back in the NFL and bouncing around from team to team, because maybe you're not aware, but maybe a lot of listeners are not aware that if you were not on an active roster by week 1, your contract was not guaranteed for that season. So that back then, if you look back in the history in the 90s and 2000s, when players got released during training camp, a lot of them didn't sign with another team until week 2, because then that team could cut you anytime and not owe you your entire salary. So I didn't want to be one of those. It was literally Monday of week 1 when I got released from the Saints. And I went home, prayed with my wife, shed some tears, and we decided, I called my agent and I said, hey, thanks for the work that you've done for me, but don't call me again. I said, I don't want to be tempted. I don't want to hear about potential opportunities. I'm just ready to move on to the next phase of my life. And that was a pretty difficult decision, because that's the first time in my life that I was not playing a sport. But it was the right decision. It gave me peace of mind. But like you said, I went from captain, telling a rookie that I'll play 10 years, to 72 hours later not being in the NFL forever again.
Tell me about the transition to the real world, as it were.
Well, and this is another aspect of how quality of an organization that the Hunt family has with the Chiefs. My next call, after I called my agent to tell him not to call me again, the next call was to the Chiefs personnel director, Lamont Winston, director of player programs. I said, hey, we're moving back to Kansas City. My house hadn't sold yet. We're moving back to Kansas City. I'm done with football. Do you have anybody I can talk to about a career? And I specifically said career, not job, because I knew that I was done and I needed to now figure out a way to start providing for my family. And he put me in contact with somebody at Bank of America. I was there for 6 months, kind of as a hybrid intern. And then I went to U.S. Bank, and I was in the mortgage department for U.S. Bank. And I wound up being there for 14 years during that time. And basically I was able to get into the mortgage industry. And part of my role was really helping nurture and teach professional athletes and entertainers about the mortgage world, credit, what's good credit, what's bad credit, how to protect your credit, and then buying a home and a lot of the banking aspects of life. And that was really, really something that was important to me, because I felt like there was some decisions that I made as a young person with no money, then all of a sudden having a lot of money, that had I had that kind of mentorship or nurturing, maybe decisions would have been made differently financially for me and my family. So I took that really personally, and it really kind of jived with my mindset as a leader back then. And so that transition was really smooth, and I wind up being with U.S. Bank for 14 years, and now I'm back with them. I've been with them for 18 years since my career ended in late 99.
Obviously, people know you now as a broadcaster as well, and so you wear many hats, and you did study broadcasting in college, so this was something that you obviously felt comfortable with, but as far as making it such an integral part of your life, how did that happen?
You know what? It's interesting because I always say that I see the game differently. I don't see it better than fans or better than you or anyone else. I just see it differently, and I think a lot of the analysts that you see on TV, the ones that are good, that can break down games and break down plays to the most kindergarten level so that people can understand what's really happening on the field. And I enjoyed that aspect. And I love being able to talk sports. I feel like I would be talking about it anyway because it's been something that I've been tied to my entire life. And now I get to do it with one of the greatest, if not the greatest, voice in the NFL with Mitch Holthus on the Chiefs radio broadcast, and that's a dream come true. But what really drew me to it, like you said, I graduated from the University of Iowa with a broadcasting degree, and I just always felt like whether it was on the radio or on TV, that I had a gift to be able to break down what I was seeing. And I do college baseball, college basketball, college football. To my knowledge, I'm the only former athlete that as an analyst, does all three major college sports, national broadcasts. And I just love all the inner workings of a game. There's so much that goes on every play, on every time down the court in basketball, every pitch, every situation in baseball. And I just see the game from an angle and from a lens, and I love to break that down. So it was a natural progression for me. I was called by Metro Sports at the time, right after I retired. They said, "Hey, Danan, we heard you're back in Kansas City." Literally, this is how the conversation went. "Hey, we heard you're back in Kansas City. Would you mind coming in and being an analyst, maybe doing some high school games?" I was like, "Sure." And they say, "All right, come in." I got in. They sat me down at the table, put the microphone on me, and said, "Okay, we're on in about 15 minutes." I was like, okay, I guess I don't know what camera I'm supposed to look at. I've never done this before, but let's have at it. And I kind of, grabbed onto it just like I did as an athlete. And 20, 21, 22 years later, I'm still doing these shows and still doing broadcasts, and I love it.
You mentioned at the important point in your life, sitting down with your wife and praying about your future. Obviously, faith is an incredibly important part of your life. How did your faith journey develop?
Oh, well, yeah, it is absolutely an important factor in my life and my household. My wife and my daughters have worked and served. My son has worked with youth in our church. We've had Hughes on staff at our church, it seems like, for the last 10, 12 years at least. And for me, my faith really became part of my life during the middle part of my NFL career. Back in 1997, I felt like, I was still lost. And I was a person that you kind of felt like I'm living the ESPN lifestyle and what people perceive as being a professional athlete and what you're doing, where you're going, how you're hanging out, and so on. And I still felt empty. And I was able to come into the light and get to know Christ as my personal Savior. And my life changed. It was a different lens that I felt like I was being responsible to my kids, to people that I was influencing, that needed to be an aspect of my life that changed. So, yes, it's definitely been a part of the Hughes house, our relationship with Christ, our relationship with our church, and taking that responsibility within our community has been really, really important to me and my family. And that's where that prayer with my wife in regards to retiring, that's where the peace came from. I think there's a lot of people that pray, and we pray for a lot of things and at different times, but the peace that comes from prayer, I think, is directly correlated to that relationship you have. And at that time, that was integral in how I was able to make that transition from pro sports into the new life and real world of having a 9-to-5 and raising a family.
You've had quite a journey, and your journey is far from over. You packed a whole hell of a lot in there in 50 years so far, my man. And but the future still holds many, many things. I can sense, obviously, that there's a great deal of contentment in your life, but you're also a very busy, still young man with plenty of things to look forward to.
Yeah, I don't know if all the stuff I do is making me old or keeping me young. I'm still the jury's still out on each of those. But yeah, I've always been the person that stayed busy. And I did a video at Iowa when I was like a sophomore, and it's on my highlight tape that I have at Iowa. And there was a little clip that said, I don't know how to sit still. I'm always busy. I always like to do things. And I kind of reflect back on my entire life is that whether it was 2 sports, whether it was being a student athlete plus 2 sports in college, 2 sports in the pros, hosting a radio show and playing for the Chiefs, then multiple hats, banker, mortgage banker, broadcaster, high school analyst, etc. Like there's always been multiple things that I do, and I don't know how to sit still. I don't know how to just do one thing. If somebody said, of all the money that you make in the 5 and 10 things that you do, we'll pay you just for doing one, it'd probably be miserable. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to function. But it's just something that's been ingrained in me. I think we all have muscle memory as an athlete. You always hear people talk about muscle memory. Well, my muscle memory is just staying busy and doing things that I love to do. And that's really, really been a blessing, that every job I have and every job I've had since I became legal and first signed my baseball contract, I've loved to do. There's not been one aspect of any job that I've hated. And I know a lot of people can't say that around this world. And so I'm very fortunate right now. For ESPN, I do college baseball. I did the college baseball regionals and some college baseball during the regular season. Big Ten Network, I do some college football, but all of their college baseball. I do some basketball on ESPN for college, and then I do the Chiefs broadcast, and then also Spectrum Sports. And then also my main job at U.S. Bank and managing the mortgage department here in Kansas City, and responsible for all the branches and mortgage coverage. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to pull my foot off the gas pedal anytime soon with all that on my plate, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.